If you want to close more $3,000 to $5,000 high ticket clients, this is the only method that you're going to need. If you've been following scripts, this is likely why you haven't been closing those sales. So my name's Caleb Desar. I work with founders, high ticket sales pros. They want to close more $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, even $50,000 deals using a really simple framework. And in this video today, I'm going to show you exactly step by step what needs to happen in a sales call in order for you to convert that person from a cold, semi-interested lead into an excited client who wants to enroll in your premium programs. So if you stay through to the end, watch this whole video, you'll have everything you need. Plus there's a little cheat sheet that you can use. If you just comment cheat sheet down below, I'll flick it over to you, or I'll just add a link in the description. So let's get into today's training. So we call this the Cognitive Dissonance Method. And I'll give you a full overview of the entire process here, but we're going to break this down step by step. So what needs to happen in the sales conversation? And the biggest mistake that we see here with most founders is that it's scripted. So what scripted means is it is following a set of words, and when the words go off track, so does the sales conversation. So what we want here is we want a framework. Basically, a framework says, here are things or boxes that you need to tick during the sales conversation in order for the sale to occur. Now, you can tick these in any order. It's just as long as you tick the boxes. And so typically every sales call needs to open up with an introduction and a transition question. This is what we call the first two boxes. And the key thing here is most people go, oh, but doesn't everyone have an intro, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yes, they do, right? But the intro is important for three reasons. The first one is it lowers sales resistance because a good intro should prime our prospects to be ready for a pitch at the end of our call. And I'll show you what that sounds like in a minute. The second thing is most sales calls blow out, so they go longer than 45 minutes. Some can take even 90 minutes. That's largely because of Parkinson's law. So if we don't set the amount of time that the call is going to take, it could take 90 minutes, it could take 2 hours. And honestly, who wants to sit on the phone for 2 hours? It sucks, right? So Parkinson's law says that a task will expand in proportion to the time that we give it. So if we don't set a time for the call, like how long it's going to be, then we're going to have these long drawn out calls that suck. The other thing is agenda. Agenda is part of the getting permission to pitch, where it's like, this is what we're going to talk about. And without this structure, it leaves the conversation, the frame of the conversation or the flow of the conversation up to a whim, right? Where it can go anywhere and there's no direction. And this is usually the first thing that I see when I review a call. I've reviewed thousands of these calls and there's just no firm direction. It's almost like leadership, right? Where if you were to jump on a cruise ship and you went to the captain and the captain, where are we going? And they say, I don't really know, wherever the wind takes me, you'd be like, that's probably not the most effective way to get there, right? Blowing where the wind goes. So think of your intro as the leadership. It's a stake in the ground. It's saying, look, this is where we're going to go today. Is everyone on board with that? Yes. Cool. All right. So it sounds a little bit like this. Hey, prospect. So thanks for jumping on the call today. Just really quickly, we're going to be here for about 45 minutes. Our main goal is to figure out what's going on for you right now and some of your goals. And if that makes sense, by the end of the call, I'll suggest some ways for us to work together. That's it. Super clear, direct, and it's done all those things that we talked about. Now, the next thing that I recommend is moving into an opening. And this first question matters a lot, right? Because there's some weird stuff that can happen here where people are like, why did you book the call? Or like, why do you want to work with us? And so without a good transition or a good opening question, we can actually derail the conversation. We can end up talking about stuff that doesn't matter. I was working with this client and they sell speaking services. And so one of the opening questions that they had was like, tell us about your story, right? And that question just sends this talkative person who wants to learn how to be a speaker into 20 minutes of just digging up their crap around what happened to them, the challenges and all that kind of stuff, none of which is helpful for you to make a sale. So the wrong question here adds 10 to 20 minutes to your sales call, which just sucks, right? And we don't want to do that. We want to have efficient sales calls so you don't waste your time and you get people saying yes and buying your premium products. So what is a good opening question? A good opening question gets your prospect to tell you why they were here, to invest further into the process, to follow on from that powerful frame that you said at the start around, this is what we're here to talk about. You tell me why you're here. You start selling to me. And what we've done so far is we're holding a frame of someone who is a consultant, right? We're not a low value person who's trying to sell something. We are the consultant who looks for the problem and goes to solve that problem. A salesperson sells things, but a consultant is there to solve the problem. So what we're doing is we'll tell us where it hurts, right? Tell us where the problem is. Tell us why it is that you booked this call in the first place. And so these little tweaks are getting this prospect to continually buy in and to sell themselves to you, which is a big theme of what we need to happen later down the line. And so typically what happens here is we'll get a client go to two areas. They'll either start with problems and the challenges, or they will talk about outcomes and goals. And this is the first major difference to scripts, right? Where a script is going to say, well, now you ask this question. But a framework says your prospect might start talking about the problems that they have or the outcomes that they have. Now, this is really critical because if someone talks about the problems, i.e. my sales results, conversions suck, I'm getting too many objections, I'm undercharging, etc. And we say, so tell me about, your big goals, right? Or like, why does this matter to you? We're creating a mismatch from their answers to the questions that we ask. And this creates a little bit of friction where it's harder for that prospect to then open up because they gave you an answer, but it feels like you didn't hear it. So wherever the prospect goes here is where we want to drill down on. So if they start with problems, we want to elaborate on those problems. We want to extend and understand those problems deeper. If they talk about outcomes, we want to elaborate on those outcomes. We want to go on those outcomes deeper. And this is where we introduce our first tool. So I call this is a questioning tool that I call the CDE method. So the CDE method stands for three things: curiosity, definition, and elaboration. This is essentially your Hail Mary. If you take nothing away from this video, just take this away, right? Where if you can be curious about what it is that your prospect says, if you can be clear on defining what it is that they mean, and you can get them to elaborate on it, you'll never have to worry about what to say. So what does this mean in practicality? So if somebody says, I have a low conversion rate, the first thing I want to be is curious, right? I don't want to skip over that. They've given me an answer, so I want to put my curious hat on. I want to go, okay, cool. That's interesting. The second step is I want to go, well, let's define what they mean by the terms that they used. So they said low conversion rate. Now, most people kind of tick the box and they go, yeah, I got a problem, and they skip over it. You're not going to do that. You're going to go, I wonder what you meant by low conversion. What does a low conversion rate actually mean? And so we'll get them to define what it is that they said. I said, I'm getting too many objections. Curiosity. What do you mean by too many objections? Can you tell me what low conversion rate translates to? Like, what kind of conversion are we looking at? Is it 10%, 20%, 30%, etc.? And so we get them to define what they mean by their answer. Now, this is powerful because it's tapping into that I feel heard, I feel understood, I feel like this person gets and understands me, which is the precursor to trust, which is the reason why people buy, right? So it's not about the script, it's about whether or not these people feel understood and they trust you and they buy because of that, right? So the next step after this is what we call elaboration. So elaboration is getting them to continue talking about it. So it's like, okay, cool. So you mentioned that low conversion rate was 10% and too many objections. You're getting, I need to think about it and it's too expensive. Can you tell me more about that? How long has that been going on for? Okay, that's interesting. Anything else? Right? So we're getting them to expand on that. And we do the exact same thing on the other side of the equation. So if somebody comes in and they start, instead of problems, they talk about outcomes. They're like, hey, look, I'm here because I want to reach 90 kilos, or I don't know what that is, pounds, 180 pounds, whatever, for Americans. I want to grow my revenue by $10,000 to $20,000 a month. These are all outcomes that they're talking about. We do the exact same thing. So we go, okay, you said $10,000 to $20,000 a month. By when? And is that new business? Is that profitability? Is that revenue? So we can define what they mean. So 90 kilos. So how many kilos would that be losing? Right. Okay. And why did you want to lose those kilos? Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. Anything else relevant? Expanding, right? So we're using that same CDE, curious, define, elaborate. And so if we do this successfully, we can then move into the second part of the sales conversation, which is how do we then stretch this gap? How do we take the problems that they've given us and turn it into something that is actually useful to make a sale? Because the shallow gap between where somebody is now and their problems and their goals, if that is small, that is often the reason why they don't buy. It's the hidden reason behind it's too expensive, I need to think about it, doesn't make sense, not right now, lack of urgency. Essentially, all of those objections flow downhill from a shallow gap. So small gap means small sale. Yeah. So problem layer, so I want to introduce the next thing to you, which is a problem layer. So underneath each one of these problems or goals that they have is another area of life in which it impacts. So if we take the sales example, right, where someone says, I'm converting at 10%, I'm getting too many pricing objections, it just sucks, the revenue is no good because of that. Is this affecting any other areas of life, right? How is this lack of sales performance affecting you, other areas, relationships, other, situations? So we're expanding it now. So we're taking that one problem and we're expanding it. And then we're doing the same thing. Okay, cool. Tell me more about that. Curious, define, elaborate. Was there anything else? Any other areas? Okay, great. And that's how we move from like a surface level problem to now a problem that is expanded and it's affecting other areas of life. The last thing that we do, the last problem layer that we add is the time as a consequence. So how long has this been going on for? What happens if nothing changes? How specifically is this a problem for you? And so these are just example questions. You don't have to use these questions, but you just want to think about if this stays the same and we're in the same place 12 months from now and you and I catch up and your sales still suck, what's going on then? So that time adds weight to the other problems that we talked about. So we had problem, we expanded problem, and then what we do is we added time, which is heaviness to that problem. So now instead of just the surface level, we actually have a real dense problem to work with. And so you might be asking, well, what if they go the other way? We do the exact same thing. So it's a goal focus this time. So let's say, for example, you doubled your close rate, you're on 30%, you grew your revenue by $10,000 to $20,000 a month, or $100,000, $200,000, depending on what your average sale is. If you achieve this outcome, how would this affect other areas of life? How do your relationships improve? How does your health improve? How does, the business profitability? What other areas of life does this impact? Okay, cool. Tell me more about that. Curious, define, elaborate. Does it affect any other areas? Anything else? No. Okay, cool. And let's say, for example, again, we use time, but we're going the other way. We're going to the future. 12 months after we solve this problem, what does the business look like? If you've added $20,000 a month, your conversion rate has gone up to 30%, and you have more profitability, more peace of mind because of that, like what does life look like 12 months from now? Well, it looks great. It looks awesome. It looks like a business that I could just relax into, that I can use to create wealth and investments, and I can go travel the world. I can do all the things that I want to. Okay, cool. And why does that matter? Why does that actually matter to you? Why is it important to you? And so what we've done there is we've taken that to the third layer. We've expanded it. We've pulled it out. And so this is your first focus in the sales conversation. And this is largely where all sales problems stream downhill from. You've got an objection problem, it's a lack of gap. If you've got a too expensive problem, it's a lack of gap. If you feel stuck and you don't know what to say, it's a lack of structure, which is framework, which is a lack of gap. And the thing is, you don't have to tick this off in order, right? Because sales conversations are fluid. They might talk about problems and they talk about outcomes. As long as you get a couple of problems, a couple of outcomes, and you stretch them out in any order in the 30 minutes that you're chatting with them, it's totally fine, right? You'll be fine. You'll make more sales. And I had a personal trainer. He had 13 calls and closed any. So he hired me and he said, Caleb, I need help selling my $5,000 fitness program. So I took him through this in one session. I said, if all you do is just tick the boxes, right? You find out what their problems are right now. I'm fat, lethargic, and I feel crap about myself. Cool. Is it affecting any other areas? Yes. My relationships, my social life, etc. I have no energy. Okay, cool. And what happens if nothing changes? I would just absolutely despise myself. Like I don't like looking in the mirror. I feel like it affects my social life. Great. Okay. And where do you want to be? Well, I want to lose 30 kilos. Okay. Why does that matter to you? Cool. What other areas of life would that affect? Cool. Tell me more. Okay. Amazing. And then if we caught up 12 months from now and you had lost 30 kilos, what would life be like? Blah, blah, blah. It'd be incredible. I'd feel energetic, happy. I'd be present. I'd be confident. Amazing. Anything else? No. Fantastic. That's all he needed to do, right? And I know it sounds overly simple because it can be, right? Sales can be simple if you have a framework to follow. Sales is only difficult for people because they don't have a structure, right? We're either learning from people who are intuitive salespeople who yap for a living, right? Yap, 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 and they accidentally fall into a sale, or they're in roles where the leads are so hot that you could fart in a jar and they would buy that because they were so pre-warmed by marketing. And the only thing that's missing for you to make more sales is just having the knowledge around the skill, around the framework that needs to happen. Right? Chances are you've never been given a framework. You've been given scripts and then you've sounded like a robot or you haven't sounded like yourself. You're like, why am I not making sales? It's like, well, I don't blame you because humans are not robotic, right? We're not robotic. We need an ability to flow conversationally. It wants to feel natural. So this is what this offers. So then you're probably thinking, well, Caleb, this is all well and true. I've built my problem, but how do I actually close them? Well, great question, right? So let's jump up to the next part, which is what we call reverse selling. So reverse selling, put really simply, is the big mistake here is people then start pitching the services. They're like, well, you should buy this and you should take this and you should grab all of my shit. So no, don't do that yet. Don't ruin the beautiful gap that you've just created. So reverse selling, this is where we get our prospects to then tell us the reasons why they want to buy or what it is that they want to buy. Have you ever had that experience where you've gone into like maybe a car dealership or like a retail store and you know exactly what you want and you just want to buy it, but the salesperson doesn't stop yapping, or they start telling you all the other things that you don't really care about? Happens to me all the time, right? So don't do that to your customers. So one of the things that's really important here is we need to summarize. So a summary is it's really simple. We just reflect back to them. We just say, hey, look, these were the problems that you mentioned. These were the outcomes. Did I miss anything? They go, no. Fantastic. Now this is very subtle, because if they agree that you didn't miss anything, they are subconsciously saying that you understand my problem, which is very critical because this is what drives the sale. People buy when they feel understood. People buy when they feel there is trust. People buy when they feel like they've been heard. And if you ask them if you've got everything and they say yes, they accept all three of those presuppositions, and then they are more likely to buy. So then the next thing we say is we get them to sell themselves to us. So we say something along the lines of, hey, what do you need from me in order to help you get to your outcome? What would you need from us? Now, this sounds like a silly question, right? Because you're like, duh, I know what they need, but it's not about you. It's about them. It's about them telling you all of the reasons that they should buy, right? This is what I need. So in most cases, this person says, you know what? I need some accountability. I need some support. There's probably some more skills that I need. If we think about the sales example, they're like, yeah, I just need a framework. I need a consistent structure that I can follow so that I can actually close the deals that I want to close. Fantastic. We got that. Anything else? Probably some help with objection handling. I get these random objections, like price objection, and I don't really know what to do. Yeah, cool. We got that. All good. Anything else? So it's you getting them to sell, getting them to tell you. Now you might be thinking, well, Caleb, what if they say, I don't know, that's why I hired you? This is not a problem, right? This is them indicating that they want to buy from you. So we just say something along the lines of, yeah, I totally get that. I've got a really good plan around what we could do to help you. I just want to hear from you. What do you need in order to solve this problem? So it's a little stress test. It's a little resistance. And you just flip it back on them. We call this frame control, but we won't get into that today because it's a little bit complicated. But basically you just flip it back. You just say, yeah, cool. It's totally fine. I appreciate that. I have a plan in my head. I just want to hear from you. How do you like to be coached? What do you think that you need? This is about you ultimately. And then they'll tell you. Cool. So now we're moving down the reverse selling process. And if you do this right, you're going to feel the sense of momentum. You're going to feel this excitement where like this prospect is like, yeah, this sounds great. This sounds exactly what I need. You kind of get me. You understand me. Let's go. So now we're going to do a simple version of objection handling where we're going to get in front of the most common objections before they're a problem. Now, as you do more sales, you're going to build up an objection list, and we're going to build up what we call reverse qualification questions. So reverse qualification questions are questions that we ask to preempt the objection that we think we're going to get later. So I'll say that again. They are questions that we ask to preempt objections that we think we're going to get later. So the most common ones are competition in time, and price is a little bit tricky. It's beyond the scope of this video because it has more to do with the gap that you've created than anything else. But the main two objections that we want to overcome here after we've just done this, the summary and the reverse selling is the time objection and the competition objection. And so don't mistake the simplicity of this for its power. Like most people think, oh man, it's so simple. How is it that powerful? You'd be really surprised, right? So the two questions that we ask is, okay, so I'm just curious, why now? And they will now tell you why now is the right time that they should act. Then the second one is, and so why us? They'll tell you why your company is the company that they should work with. And I know you're going to be saying to me, Caleb, that sounds way too simple. It's like, just prove me right before you prove me wrong. This is what my mentor used to say. So I'm like, shut up, Caleb. Prove me right before you prove me wrong. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just put my student hat on and I'll go do it. It just works, right? But it only works if you've done the rest of the process properly. Lots of people add these kind of questions at the start, these why questions, and they immediately break rapport because they trigger defensiveness. But we have a feeling of, I'm understood. I feel like you get me. I'm buying into this process. Yeah, now is the right time. Let me tell you why right? The position of these questions is really, really important. The next box we want to tick is transition to pitch. So this is where we go, okay, cool, I've got it. Let's talk about is it okay if we talk about some potential options? Now, old school sales is like, no, you should just assume the sale. It's like, no, you're just silly. Like, people don't operate that way, right? The reason why we ask, is it okay? Of course it's okay. And if they say yes, they are accepting it's okay to receive the pitch. So we bypass all of the sales resistance. This is why we ask, right? Is it okay if I share some potential options with you? We've diffused all sales resistance. The crocodile part of their brain that feels threatened doesn't activate because they've said, yes, sell me, Caleb. Sell me some stuff. So this is why we ask permission to pitch before we go into pitch. And obviously you have your pitch. And this is not necessarily something that I can cover here because everybody's pitch is different. If you have a slide deck, etc., this is where you would put it in, right? And so you want to do this discovery and this reverse selling and this reverse qualifying before we get to the pitch. So I trust that was valuable. Here's the entire system again. If you want a copy of this, just comment cognitive dissonance down below. And if we get enough comments, I'll just chuck it in. I don't know if this is useful or not. Just let me know. And if you like this video, there'll be another one up that YouTube will suggest. That's the one that's likely YouTube says that you'll like best. It might not be me. It could be me. Who knows? But I hope today's video was valuable. We'll see you in the next one.